You're listening to the Fierce Fatty Podcast, episode 96, Fat Feederism, Food Police Voices, and will fatness, quote, catch up with us? Let's do it.
Perfect.
I'm Victoria Wellesby, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and fat activist. I have transformed my life from hating my body with desperately low self-esteem to being a courageous and confident, fierce fatty who loves every inch of this jelly. Society teaches us living in a fat body is bad, but what if we spent less time, money, and energy on the pursuit of thinness and instead focused on the things that actually matter, like if pineapple on pizza should be outlawed, or if the mullet was the greatest haircut of the 20th century. So, how do you stop negative beliefs about your fat body controlling your life? It's the Fierce Fatty Podcast. Let's begin. Hello fatties, welcome to this episode. Hope life is treating you amazingly. I'm feeling very proud of myself. You remember I told you a couple of weeks ago I got my hair cut and I had a gender dysphoria experience because the hairdresser was like, oh, we'll make it so feminine and you're a brand new woman and all that type of stuff. Instead of just getting a new hairdresser, I went back and told them how I was feeling. Which is like personal growth. So they said that the hairdresser said that you can come back within a month and I'll give you a free trim. That's apparently with most hairdressers you can do that. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And so when I called up to get in for this 15-minute kind of trim appointment, I told the receptionist, hey, by the way, can you make a note on my file so that the hairdresser knows that I am non-binary and my pronouns are they, them. And when I got there, I said, oh, I'm sorry. Last time when I came in, I didn't ask you what your pronouns are. And she said, she, her. And I said, great, mine are they, them. I'm actually non-binary. And we sat down. I said, hey, so I didn't do a very good job at communicating with you. And this is how me having long hair on the back of my head makes me feel. And she was amazing. She was like, thank you so much for letting me know and coming back. And she spent 45 minutes giving me a sick fade and some free products. And it was great. So, look, there we go. Speaking up for myself. It paid off. I'm very, very proud of myself. Thank you. So, it's kind of hard, right? Because I don't like being a quote-unquote troublemaker. Like, I think it's like a British thing. It's a big British thing. It's probably an all-world thing that... you know, like you're in a restaurant and you get served and you know there's like pubes in the food and pieces of dog shit and the server comes and says, how is everything? And you're like, oh, amazing, oh my god, the best meal I've ever eaten in my life. Get the chef out here, I need to praise them, leave a tip of 100% because you don't want to ever make a fuss. Like, you know, that's the kind of probably everyone experiences that, right? And then learning to, it's okay to say sometimes, actually, I just noticed that there's a pube in my food. Do you think I could have a new one? That's okay. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. So I'm practicing that some more. So this episode today, I am answering questions that I got in listener questions. If you want to ask a question, then go to the show notes. We're at episode 96. So to get today's show notes is fiercevalley.com/096 for episode 96, 096, episode 96, or just /podcast. And you'll see the show notes. In the show notes, there's a link to submit a question. So if there's anything that's on your mind that I've not covered, or even if I have covered and you want to know more, then send me a question and then I could maybe answer it for you. Yeah, sound fun? Sound like a deal? Yeah, amazing, great, do it, go on, do it. And so our first question today is from Elizabeth. This is what Elizabeth says. Hi Victoria, while talking to a friend who said she needed to, quote, lose weight to be healthy, I explained to her that there are many ways to work on health. She seemed open to hearing more, and so I told her about how I stopped dieting, since they do not work, and started working on incorporating sustainable, healthy behaviours that did not include dieting. I told her that since I started approaching my health this way, my health markers have continued to improve year over year, and I feel better and more confident. Her response was, "It will catch up to you eventually if I don't lose weight." I honestly did not know how to respond to this, and I would love to hear how you might have responded to this type of comment. Thanks for all you do. Goodbye, Elizabeth. I added that bit on the end. So this is a great question. Great question. You know what? Sometimes when we are like baby fats as in fats who are new to the fat acceptance movement, or anywhere you are in the fat acceptance movement, sometimes people will say comments and you're like, I don't know what to say. Do they have a point? I've not come across this anymore before, so I don't know what to say. And even if you've been doing fat acceptance stuff for forever, you still will have times where people say something and your brain is just like, shut down, don't know how to respond. So this is totally normal that you didn't know what to say. As an outsider who is not in that kind of situation where someone's saying it's going to catch up with you, where I might want to just do a roundhouse kick to their mouth and say, fuck you. My relaxed brain is saying that her logic doesn't make sense, right? It's not logical. That you said year over year you are feeling better and everything's just feeling good for you, and it's like it's gonna catch up to you. Do you know what that made me think? In like movies, like, do you remember Big? I think I've spoken about Big before. I must love Big. I haven't seen it in years. I need to rewatch it with Tom Hanks. I love Tom Hanks. Please, Tom Hanks, don't be a predator. Please don't come out that you're weird, Tom Hanks. I'm putting on my love of cis men in you and Will Smith. If either of you turn out to be creeps, then I'm just going to die. So please, Tom, obviously, who listened, Tom Hanks. Yes. So anyway, Big, the film, he goes to like a fortune telling machine and it says something blah 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 and makes him into a kid or whatever. That's what it made me think of, like fat people have made a deal with the devil. We're going to sell our soul we're trading our soul in order to be fat, and then it's going to catch up with us because we made a deal with the devil, and on our deathbed we're going to be like, the devil is going to, as we're dying, the devil's going to come and I imagine like the Grim Reaper being like, oh, remember when you were 13 and you made that deal? I'm coming here to take your soul because you're fat. That's what it made me think. Like, it's just ridiculous. So that's not probably a helpful response, but that's just what my brain said. So my response would be if someone said that, if I had the spoons, if I had the capacity, I might just be like, do you know what, see you later, mate, I can't be bothered with this shit. But if I had the capacity, my response would be something like, what makes you say that? Or why do you believe that? And they'll probably say something like, oh, well, if you keep being fat, you're going to get diabetes. And then you can say something like, yeah, I can understand why you may think that because of our fat phobic society, but actually diabetes is largely a genetic condition, and you can't eat your way into being diabetic. And they'll say, well, what about heart disease? And you can say, yeah, I can understand why you might think that, because we live in such a fat phobic society that says that fat people are all going to have heart attacks at any moment. But people of all sizes get heart disease, and losing weight actually has very, very, very little effect on my chances of getting heart disease. And they might go on and on and on, but you can go to, I mention this all the time, but Haes Health Sheets, Haes Health Sheets, Haes Health Sheets, for a little rundown on the common things. So people are like, oh my God, you're going to die any second. And it's normally all about health, right? It's going to catch up to you, because she's not saying it's going to catch up to you, aka your sense of well-being and your confidence. That's going to catch up to you. They're thinking about health, probably, right? And so this person is deep in fat phobia, and they really believe that being fat is a death sentence. And when we know that that's not how it works, science doesn't tell us that, but Fat Phobic Society does tell us that. And so we kind of have to meet people where they are. And it sounds like you presented some really cool information. Maybe you planted a seed, maybe not. And they weren't maybe able to hear more at that time. Perhaps if you said, oh, what about if she said diabetes, cancer, heart disease, eating the babies, all of those common things, then you maybe if you had talked to her about the science and stuff, she might have come a bit closer to that idea, but maybe not. It's not your job to educate people for free, and sometimes educating people can cause you to come up against bigotry, which is actually harmful to you. And so your friend was really lucky that you took the time to share a little bit with them, maybe plant that seed. This is maybe the first time that this person's ever heard anything like that. And as well, it's not okay that you experience that bigotry, but putting yourself in the shoes of where you were when you heard this information, if anyone, I was when I read Health at Every Size by Dr. Lindo Bacon, and so I was ripe for the picking. I was there on the cusp. I was ready to hear this information. But maybe if I got that information a month or two earlier or a year earlier, that type of information, I would have been like, whatever, losers. Fat people can suck my tits, even though I was a fat person. They're all so greedy and lazy, and so maybe they're not there. And that is okay too. It's not your job. But the big thing is when someone comes out with a statement like that, is just to ask them, like, why do you think that? And they'll come out with the good old kind of zingers. Well, everybody knows. And then you can say, do they? Do they know? Is that backed by science? But also protect yourself, because, it's exhausting to be running around with all of the fat phobes in the world, right? Okay, so hope that helped, Elizabeth. Now we've got a question from Kat. Kat says, hi Victoria, your podcast is my favourite. Thank you, Kat. You're so funny and entertaining. Thank you, Kat. Thank you for helping expand my awareness and educate me. Recently, I have been struggling with my inner critical food police, quote, food police voice. I get thoughts like, quote, you're eating too much. You shouldn't have another snack, even though I'm doing well to honor my hunger and eat when and how much I want. The voice is still there. Do you have any advice to help me deal with this and eat without judgment like I deserve? Thank you so much, Kat. Oh, I love that last line. Eat without judgment like I deserve. Oh, Kat, I love it. You do we all deserve that. And just an FYI, this is totally normal. I bet you most people who are listening to this who are on an intuitive eating journey would be like, me too, Kat. I even come up with this voice from time to time. So it's totally normal, because I'll tell you why. We live in diet culture, we live in fat phobia, so it's a constant combating those messages of what we can eat and what we should eat and la 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 la. Like if you were learning intuitive eating and you were just living in a society. Imagine if you lived in a society where it's intuitive, everyone was an intuitive eater. You know, everything that you watched was intuitive eating. All the social media that you were looking at was intuitive eaters, right? It would be a lot easier to remove those types of thoughts, but because we live in the exact opposite, it's very difficult. And so it's kind of like a push and pull all the time. And this process, it's a normal part of unlearning fat phobia and diet culture. And it means that you need to lean in to those experiences, to that food, whatever it is, even more, and take some time to try and dissect and see if you can work out what is going on and what is coming up for you. And notice, I bet you, it's not that you're snacking on carrots and your brain says, do you really need another carrot stick? You know, why are you so greedy? I bet you it's other things that society has told us are bad, right? It's probably not carrot sticks. Maybe it is. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it is. But I'm guessing it's probably foods that we have decided are quote unquote bad. So I want you to take some time, and the next time you notice this feeling, it might come up all the time for you, but the next time you can catch yourself noticing this feeling, take some time to answer these questions about what's going on. So, what history do you have with this food item? What history do you have with this food item? I know certain foods for me, there's a big emotional draw, and I need to work through those foods way more than other things that maybe I've never seen before. You know, like for example, Oreos. To me, Oreos like mean nothing because I'm British. We didn't have Oreos, and so they mean nothing. And then when I eat an Oreo, I'm just like whatever, because there's no emotional attachment there. Whereas someone else might be like, oh my god, Oreos! Oh, they're the best thing ever. And that's fine. That's just a part of your history with that food. So what is your history? What is your emotional connection with that food? There's no right or wrong answers. It's just getting curious, right? So why do you feel like this around this food and not another food? Why do you think? Why is it that this food item that you're currently exploring has things that come up for you, whereas other things, not so much? Next, answer, what happens if you did eat many of that food? Like, what happens if you just let yourself listen to that voice? And you might be eating the thing anyway, but hearing the voice and being like, oh, shut up, I'm going to eat it anyway, I can leave me alone. So what happens but if you were to eat a lot of it? Write that down. What would happen if you put on weight? Like, what would that mean about you? What would that mean? What would weight gain mean about you as a human? What would that mean? Next answer, why do I feel guilt? Why? Why do I feel guilt? What does guilt mean for me? What does guilt mean for me? Is guilt keeping me safe? Is guilt keeping me safe? And how do you benefit if you feel guilty? And how do you benefit if you had food freedom? So answer those questions. See what comes up. And I don't know what's going to come up for you. I don't know what's going to come up. But I like thinking about these voices, these kind of guilty voices. When they pop up, it's a real gift. Although it can feel really frustrating when you hear these voices being like, you're so greedy. But it's a gift because it tells us where we still need to do work. It's like a roadmap, right? It's just a really helpful thing to say, hey, you're still kind of feeling a lot of ways about this and that, so maybe you should explore that some. And it doesn't mean anything about you, that you're bad or that you haven't done the work. It just means that, oh, here's a little kind of spot that needs a little bit of exploration. Also, whatever it is, the foods that you're having these voices around, they are not inherently bad. No food is inherently bad. We all have different foods that we think are bad, that we fixate on. I find it so interesting, like hearing about people's particular food, and I'm like, really? Because I never even considered that as a quote unquote bad food. I just thought that that was just a food that, was a good, like a just a average type of food, quote unquote average type of food. But and then so it's like it's not an inherently bad thing. It's not that food is ranked on like a scale of the baddest and the goodest, because it's just not. One person's quote unquote bad food is another person's meh food. So I want you to know that whatever food you are having those thoughts about, it doesn't mean it's because that food is a bad food. It's because there's some sort of history, there's some sort of relationship there that would benefit from some increased exploration. So I hope that helps, Kat. And I hope that helps for anyone else who's struggling with that. Okay, our last question is from Isabella. Isabella says, I recently became single after dating/being married to the same person since I was a teenager. He was very petite and I'm not. We pretty much avoided talking about size and weight, and I assumed the reason he cheated was because he wanted someone thinner and I was unattractive. In fact, is it because I'm fat? Was one of the first things to come out of my mouth when I found out, and we broke up. Now I've joined the dating scene and I get a lot of attention as a BBW, or quote super curvy, as men often refer to me. In fact, hundreds of messages a day on dating sites. I started feeling myself and even got into modeling as a plus size glamour model, which is going well. My question is about a guy I'm seeing who is just one of many men in this category, and he fetishizes fat women. I feel like I neither want to be with someone who only likes me because I'm fat, but also don't want to be with someone who would rather I wasn't. So where does sexual preference begin and fetish end? Is it okay as long as I'm okay with it? The thing that concerns me most is that he says he wouldn't find me as attractive if I was smaller and would want me to put on weight if possible. As an intuitive eater, I always eat what I fancy and never weigh myself, so the thought of trying to control my weight or size feels very uncomfortable. Hope you can help. Thank you very much, Isabella. All right. So I did an episode. Did I do a whole episode on fat fetishism? I don't think I did. I know I've spoken about this before, but this is like a lot of people ask about this, like when in the DMs and stuff. So I think this is important because I got another question like this. So I think it's important to talk about this again. And Isabella, your question kind of comes up. Shows the answer in the question. It's like, this is what it sounds like. This is what it sounds like. So I'm going to read back some of the things that you said. So you said, I feel like I neither want to be with someone who only likes me because I'm fat. Yeah. I wouldn't want to be with someone who only likes me because I'm fat, because that's dehumanizing. It doesn't feel good. Unless you're into that, you like, that's like a kink of yours to be dehumanized, and that's fine, whatever. But generally speaking, someone liking us for only our body it's objectification, right? And objectification leads to a whole host of things that are not great, including violence. And so we want to avoid that, unless it's consensual, again, okay? So any of this stuff, if both parties, or however many parties are involved, if they're all like, fuck yeah, I like this shit, and it feels good to people, then that's fine. So, it may work for a one-night stand, but it sounds like it's the same old body policing, and it doesn't feel good. You say it doesn't feel good. So this person, you said, only would want you to put on weight if you lost weight. That's like body policing, right? So I think that's your answer with that guy. But you asked this question, which was really interesting. Where does sexual preference begin and fetish end? So that's a really great question. And so let's start with what a fetish is. And this is a quote from Is It Okay to Have a Fetish? Written on Greatest. It doesn't say who the author is, which is weird, unless I can't see it with my eyeballs. It's not very nice to the author. Oh, here we go. Nicole McDermott. So, is it okay to have a fetish? To have a fetish? Full stop. So it starts. Ladies' underwear, animal costumes, and rubber balloons might not sound sexy to everyone, but for some people, they're a huge turn on. Sexual fetishes describe unconventional sexual behavior, and they can be part of a healthy sex life. But sometimes fetishes get in the way of relationships with friends, family, and romantic partners. So when is asking your partner to wear business socks in the bedroom okay? The term fetish is hundreds of years old. It comes from the Portuguese word fetico, meaning obsessive fascination. Today, the word fetish refers to a recurrent fantasy, urge, or behavior that's sexually arousing and lasts for at least 6 months. Fetishes can involve anything from items of clothing to non-genital body parts like feet, but they don't mean that someone's a freak. Sexual fetishes are a kind of paraphilia or atypical sexual behavior. So I'll link up to that in the show notes. But basically, what it's saying in that last line is a fetish is something atypical, so not typical, which is suggesting that liking fat people is unconventional, which for me doesn't sit right. Just liking fat people, is that unconventional and atypical? It doesn't feel good to me to categorize it as that. And some people argue that there are no such things as fetishes, and that what we would class as a fetish is just a normal part of sexual self-expression. And so, putting a label on it as a fetish can cause some people to feel like it's something bad when it's not, as long as it's consensual, right? So I would say that liking fat people isn't a fetish. It's just liking human beings, right? And considering most of the world population is fat, well, not the world population, most of the North American population is fat, then most people are with a fat person, right? So it's just, in my eyes, liking a human being. I think feederism would be classed as a fetish. So feederism, if you're not aware, it's sometimes people would like to feed their partner, maybe feed them a lot of food, or feed them food which they hope will help them gain weight. And some feeders, there's feeders and the feedies, I think that's what you call them. And so they would like watching, maybe filming their partner eating food, feeding it to them, watching their weight increase. And obviously not everyone is the same. Some might be like, I just enjoy cooking for my spouse, and some might be more of the involved in all of that type of stuff. And the person, the feeder and the feedee, are both enjoying this relationship, right? It's consensual. So, and there's nothing wrong with having a fetish, by the way, as long as everyone's safe as possible and everyone's consenting. And the thing is, sometimes I think some people can be vulnerable, especially if you live in a world, which we do, that says that being fat is unattractive, and then like Isabella has experienced, getting out of a relationship and realizing actually there's a lot of people who really want to get with me. Sometimes people's self-esteem needs time to catch up in regards to setting boundaries and speaking up for themselves. And so sometimes there can be the situation where people who are in a relationship, they don't like what's going on, but feel like they don't have the agency to speak up and say, I'm not really into it, for whatever reason, in lots of different circumstances. And so I just want to say, no matter who you are, you've always got the right to say, I'm not into this. Or I'm really into this, wherever it falls. That's to know that you don't have to put up with things that you don't like in any type of situation, any type of behavior, just because you have a bigger body. There are many, many, many people out there, just like Isabella said, hundreds of messages a day. Holy shit, I don't know what site Isabella is on, but I'm going to get on it because I want those hundreds of messages. So Isabella goes on and says, is it okay as long as I'm okay with it? Yes. If you're okay with it, then it's okay, right? If you're both okay with it, it's okay. But you said that you don't want to be with someone who only likes you for your body. So maybe you can set some parameters around what does and what doesn't feel good for you with this person or with other people. You go on to continue. The thing that concerns me most is that he says he wouldn't find me as attractive if I was smaller and would want me to put on weight if possible. As an intuitive eater, I always eat what I fancy and never weigh myself, so the thought of trying to control my weight or size feels very uncomfortable. So that's the answer right there. It makes you feel uncomfortable. And I wonder, just exploring that of like, why does it make you feel uncomfortable? There's no right or wrong answer there. I was thinking about this, like, would I want to date someone who is a feeder? And I was thinking about this. I haven't ever come across this myself in my dating life. I don't think I'm on the right websites, but I don't think that I would like to think about someone feeding me or encouraging me to eat more than I want for their satisfaction. It kind of do you know what it kind of feels like? It feels like just cis hetero sex, which is all about the man, all about them getting their kicks and leaving women in a cis hetero relationship, leaving women there to be like, well, I've used you for what I want, see you later. Like, you go sort yourself out. Like, that's the vibes it gives me, is that they're not doing it for me, they're doing it for you. That's how I would feel, because I'm don't think that I'm into it. And so if I was into it, maybe I wouldn't have that kind of distaste, because I would feel like they're just using me, sort of thing. And maybe on a special occasion, say if I was with someone that they love fat people, and maybe on a special occasion they wanted to feed me for fun, then I don't think that would be a big deal, but not as a main part of my sex life with someone. I'd happily let them feed me what I'd normally eat. Say if they were like, oh, you're having some lunch, can I feed you your sandwich? I'll be like, thank you very much. I'd probably like it. Or if they wanted to worship my body, I'd probably like it. Basically treat me like royalty. I would like that. But also on the condition that they like me for me, not like me for my body, and that it doesn't matter if I lose weight, because I don't know what's going to happen with my body. My body is just my body. It just does what it wants, right? I don't have the intention of being fat or being thin or eating this or eating that. My body just does what it does. And because I'm an intuitive eater, I eat what feels good to me and feels good to my body. But the thing is, if someone's dating me for my body, I can 1000% guarantee if I'm lucky enough to live older, my body will change. 1000% my body will change. Maybe I'll lose weight, maybe I'll gain weight, maybe I will, if I'm lucky, I'll get older, maybe I'll lose mobility, you know, my skin will change, my face will change, everything's going to change, because this is what I look like right now is temporary. And so if I'm trying to get into a relationship with someone who's like, I only like you because of the way you look, well then they and I are shit out of luck, because my looks are going to change. Yeah, and so let me go back to the question of where does sexual preference begin and a fetish end? So I think the idea of something being atypical, like it is typical to fetishize thin bodies, right? It is typical for people to say, I could only be with a thin person, I could only get a hard dick before a thin person, and that is not seen as a fetish because so many people feel the same way. And so that's where the categorization of then why, if that's about a fat person, then is that seen as a fetish? And does that make them deviant? Well, my answer is no. It's just a preference. But then there are things that are, I think, atypical, and I don't think that, generally speaking, most people, in fact, most fat people in relationships also are in like a feedee type relationship. I think that's more atypical, and so that would, in my mind, be a fetish, which again, it's okay to have a fetish, and so versus just liking a fat person. And I want to show you like the anguish that people have over this question, and like whether having a fetish is even a problem. So there's this post I saw on Reddit. Listen, don't go on Reddit, just avoid Reddit. I'll pick up things from time to time, but Reddit is a shit show. But this question I thought was really interesting. I will read it. My fat fetish is ruining any chance I have of finding happiness with another, and I don't know what to do. Please don't hate. For those curious, I think I'm a feeder, someone who wants to make consenting girls fatter because it turns me on. Now, please understand that I've tried repressing these sexual desires my entire life, but I'm a serial monogamist, and I always seem to sabotage relationships simply because of this. I've lost women I could have spent the rest of my life with because of my selfishness. I've tried being honest and upfront in the beginning, but it doesn't seem to work. I thought maybe if I was honest, people would just decide not to be with me from the start and I'd avoid hurting them and myself. But girls don't seem to understand. Sometimes I'll date a girl and they'll indulge me and gain 30 pounds or something, but then they'll decide they don't want to be fat anymore and they'll go on a diet, and our relationship tanks because they think I resent them, and even though I try my hardest not to, I definitely do. My whole being is a contradiction. I'm active, I'm vegan, I love hiking, I love playing sports. I do want someone to do activities with, but then at the same time, I want a lazy girl who I can bake for and rub her belly and treat her like a fat queen. Despite being vegan, I get turned on by the idea of a girl drinking heavy cream, and I just don't know how to deal with myself. The biggest contradiction is how I feel like I'm a good guy, but I know encouraging a girl to gain weight is unhealthy, and yet I'm still extremely aroused by it, and I always have been. I know it's weird. I know I'm fucked up. I don't need or want anyone to remind me of this. I'm just trying to figure out how to live a happy life, trying to understand the best way forward. Now I'm single again and I've been dating. The thing is, a lot of girls like me. I like to think I'm charming, easy to talk to, seemingly everything a girl might want in a guy, minus this secret. And I just don't know how to move forward. I went on a couple of dates with this petite girl and we get along so well. I held her in my arms yesterday and she kissed my neck a few times. There was obvious chemistry. She's a backpacker like me, outgoing, adventurous, everything I'd like to think I'd want in a woman. She's postdoc, so super smart, my age, perfect for me, if it weren't for the fact I wish she was curvier. Then there's another girl. I met her yesterday and she was absolutely stunning to me. Big breasts, obviously fat, but also beautiful where it matters most, or where I'd like to think it matters most. She is smart, sweet, we laugh a lot. Grad student, she described her perfect man, and it was me to a key. I think he means tea. I enjoyed both of their company significantly, but I've never actually been with a big girl. I feel like it'd be better to date the girl who is already my type. I don't want to go into a relationship and I want to change people. I don't want to be fucked up, but then I worry that she'll lose weight one day and I'll be unattracted to her. What should I do? How do I erase this fetish from my mind? Sometimes I feel like it's ruining my life. It's just hard. Please, no trolls. I need genuine advice. So I thought that was really interesting. Obviously this person has got a lot of fat phobic beliefs. Like the idea that he wants to go, okay, I'm active, I'm vegan, I love hiking. Like, he's almost describing me. Like, I'm active, I'm vegetarian, I love hiking. And I'm fat, and so he's saying, but I also want a lazy girl. Like, I'll be lazy too. I'll bake for her, yes please, and rub my belly and treat me like a fat queen. Listen, mate, he just needs to date me. But then again, I'm not into the feeder thing. But he's got his own fat phobia, which means that he doesn't understand that you can be fat and active and fat and vegan and fat and love hiking and all that type of stuff. And so yeah. He's got his own fat phobia to work through. But here's one of the responses. This person replies, we don't choose our fetishes. We can't get rid of them. And they don't define us morally as long as we are safe, require enthusiastic consent from partners, treat others with respect at all times, and are self-aware and self-reflective. The feeder gainer, oh, that's the thing, gainer. Not feedy, maybe it is feedy or gainer. Feeder gainer fetish is a pretty common one, and there are tons of people like you out there. Are you on FetLife? FetLife is a social networking site for people with fetishes. Do you focus on dating mostly on kink sites? If not, that's where you should shift your attention to. If you're not able to find a partner right now as into this as you are, you should continue to explore this link anyway. I think that's mean kink. Perhaps your partner will indulge you once a month, and the rest of the time you can enjoy porn, cartoons, erotica, etc. Maybe you can have a platonic feeder/gainer relationship, or one where your partner's consent, who is more than platonic, but you only see them once in a while. My point is that this does not need to ruin your life. There are lots of options. Get on some kink sites and start talking to people, even just about how hard it is for you right now. There's nothing wrong with you, and this does not make you a bad person. And the person who originally posted said, thank you, seriously, I needed to hear that. I was feeling really down about this, blah, blah, blah. I'm feeling better about myself already. Your advice is seriously appreciated. Thank you for being kind. Yeah, so basically this guy is like, I have such a problem, and it's kind of like, the problem is mostly that they think that they have a problem, that they think that this fetish is so deviant, right? And it kind of reminds me of that, us dieting. We're trying to not eat the food, don't eat the bad food. And all it does is it makes us think that we are deviant, that, well, why can't we stop thinking about the food? It was because we're restricting ourselves. So if he were to lean into that world, maybe it would work out for him. But, there could be some issues here too. Like, say if he was objectifying his fat partner a ton, or was in he said he's a serial monogamist. If he was in a monogamous relationship and was cheating, maybe then there could be issues. But maybe it just means that he needs to be polyamorous. Maybe if that's what he wants, and he wants to go out and have lots of different women that he has feeder, gainer, feedy relationships with, and that's what makes him happy, then that's fine too. That doesn't mean he's going to ruin his life. We all have these ideas of what we need to do, what makes us good, and relationships, how relationships should look, and being monogamous, and I don't think that is the solution for a lot of people. to be kind of closed in with these ideas of what we should do and what we should like, and is this such a problem, and am I disgusting? Like, if it feels good for you and you're not hurting people, like, fucking go for it. I mean, yeah. So that question was asked on Reddit a couple of years ago, and I like to think that this guy has probably met some cute fatty that he's feeding and going on hikes with and all that type of stuff. Or not. Maybe he's at home crying about how he's attracted to fat people and thinking that he's a bad person for it, which he shouldn't. So I'll link this up into the show notes too, so you can go and have a look. And there's not that many comments on here actually. Yeah, I think he seems quite young too. Like, he's saying, how do you get into a long-term relationship, or how do you hold hands and things like that. And he says then maybe he needs to get a Clockwork Orange style treatment. I don't know if you've ever seen Clockwork Orange, but basically there's a scene where they someone has their eyes opened literally like by this like machine, and they're forced to watch ultraviolence, like violent things. Anyway, so basically he's like, maybe I need to brainwash myself to stop liking fat people, because society has told him that it's so deviant, right? That it's so deviant that he needs to torture himself. He needs to torture himself and force himself to have sex with straight size women. That's what a fucking job that fatphobia has done on this guy. I mean, just, get with some fat people. It's all good. It's all good. Don't worry about it. So let's summarize this question, because there's a lot of things going on here. So Isabella asks, is it okay to be with someone who has a fat fetish and is a feeder? So someone who wants to feed their partner, maybe watch them gain weight, take satisfaction in seeing them eating foods which people might say are quote unquote bad. And Isabella is saying that it doesn't necessarily feel good to her, because one guy that she is in contact with says that they wouldn't like it if she lost weight. And so to me, this is a big clue of whether this particular person is the right person for Isabella, is that they are monitoring. It's the same old body policing that's going on. Like, they're not attracted to you if you lose weight. Well, they're shit out of luck, because your body's going to do what your body does. And it sounds like being with someone who is monitoring your weight in that way, whether it be someone who's saying that you need to be thinner or someone that's saying that you need to be fatter, if that's not what you're into, then it doesn't sound like it is something that's going to be positive for you. Now, in regards to where does sexual preference begin and fetish end, which is such a great question. I think, so a fetish is defined as something that is atypical, out of the norm. I think finding fat people attractive is not a fetish, because it's pretty typical. Most of North America, there's so many fat people, many people are dating fat people, and so it to me doesn't seem atypical. Feederism and like feeder gainer, feeder feedee type relationship, that is less typical. It's absolutely okay to have a fetish as long as everyone is safe as they can be and enthusiastically consensual. Having a fetish is absolutely fine. And so if you do want to engage in that feeder gainer or feedee type relationship that feels really cool and exciting and fun to you, then there's no rules out there that says that you can't do it. If it feels good, do it. And if it doesn't, you don't have to. So listen to what your brain is saying, and don't feel pressurized to think that just because you're in a bigger body, if you're a fat person, that you must say yes to things that you're not comfortable with because someone is quote unquote willing to date you. There are so many people that would just kill to go on a date with you, to message you, to know you. You are worthy of being in a relationship with someone who respects your boundaries, who wants to make sure that you're happy and providing consent that is really consent, excited and happy consent, versus that pressure to go along with something that you're not really into for fear that the person is going to leave you. And if that includes someone who says, I only like you because you're fat, and that doesn't feel good to you, then it sounds like it might not be good for you if it's not feeling good for you. So I hope that helps. I hope that is, I love all this stuff, right? It's so interesting. It's so interesting. I hope you've enjoyed me. I hope you've enjoyed me. Enjoy me. I'm going to go and sign up for FetLife, see if I can get some of those fatty worshippers. The thing is, that's the thing. So I'm on like Hinge, OkCupid, Twitter. Like, in my mind, the people who were messaging me, I'm like, you don't get how cool I am. You think, because most of them are fatphobic, because most people are fatphobic, you think that me being fat is like a negative thing and all of my other attributes are kind of making up for the fatness. Not everyone thinks like that, obviously, but a lot of people do. And I'm like, in my brain, I'm like, you're wrong. You're simply wrong. And it gets on my tits that this is how people think. And so, yeah, maybe I need to take it onto like FetLife or whatever. But I'm going to go and do some research to go and hook up with people or have relationships with people who were like, fuck yeah, fatties are gorgeous. So I can be like, yes, finally, hello. Like, these people, they've come to their senses. They've realized how cool fat people are, and not just because they're fat, but just because fat bodies are human bodies and human bodies are cool, right? So yeah, I'll keep you updated on my like FetLife adventure. Maybe I'll go in there, I'll be like, what the fuck, this is not for me. Or maybe next episode I'll be like, oh my god, I had so much dick, I'm just absolutely stuffed on how much dick I had. Fingers crossed. Oh yeah. Yeah, because there are like restrictions around COVID in Vancouver. We're allowed, masks. Most people are vaccinated, and it's coming in where there's what is it called? Health card or vaccine card or something like vaccine passport or whatever. And so I'm like, great. So we know that we can go out and have fun, and the other person, to get into the pub, they have to prove that they're vaccinated. So I'm looking forward to that. Although I live just off a main street here in Vancouver, and a couple of days ago there was a protest, not a big one. There was just like a dribbling of people being like, don't get a vaccine. If you do, then you're stupid. And I was just like, oh, fuck off, you idiots. You idiots. Go home. Something they said is, you wouldn't trust Bill Gates to fix your computer. You wouldn't trust Bill Gates with your computer, so why would you trust Bill Gates with your body? I'm like, what the fuck? Bill Gates didn't give me my vaccine. What the fuck are you talking about? Fucking And I would trust Bill Gates with my computer, actually. Like, although Bill Gates is not the greatest, but it's just not logical. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Fierce Fatty Podcast. See you later, fatty, goodbye. Thanks for listening to the episode. And if you feel ready to get serious about this work and want to know when the doors open to Fierce Fatty Academy, which is my signature program where I teach all about how to overcome your fatphobic beliefs and learn to love your fat body, then go to fiercefatty.com/waitlist. Again, that is fiercefatty.com/waitlist to get your name on the waitlist for when Fierce Fatty Academy, my signature program, opens.